Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to class early. So we'll just wait a little bit until everyone comes, and I have a few things I want to talk about. So mostly um, just kind of general feedback for like how everyone's been doing so far, because I think everyone has been doing a really good job. So we'll be talking about that when everyone comes. Okay, so we have about a few minutes until class starts, and I only have four people here so far. How are you guys doing? In general. Are you guys doing good? Are you guys doing not so good? How is life? Did you do anything fun so far? Okay, hang on. You're feeling great. Can you tell me why?
Um, because I met many friends, good friends in here. That is the good part of, but it is so dry, like super dry. Then my neck has gone.
Yeah, no, understandable, honestly. I think one of the things is that I feel like everyone should kind of make sure that they're taking care of themselves. Going to school like every single day, like this intensively, does also affect all those things. But I'm glad that you met people. I'm glad that the people around you are fun and you're having a good time. This is great. And while everyone comes, I actually have a question for you guys. Have you been working on the bingo? It's okay. It's completely optional. You don't have to. But have any of you tried looking at the bingo or like doing any of the stuff on the bingo card? That's okay. That's completely fine. It is very optional. It's just there if you needed any help like figuring out how to start doing things. But yeah, okay. We have more people joining in. Okay. So while everyone comes to class, I have a couple of quick things to say about more or less your assignments and how they've been going. So I'm seeing a lot of really, really, really good work. I looked over the collaboratories from yesterday and yeah, the one from 2 days ago from Monday and the one from yesterday, and you guys are doing a really, really good job. I also really loved seeing all the flowcharts that you brought to class. I think you now all understand what an algorithm is, what a flowchart is supposed to be, which makes me very, very happy. There's a few things I see kind of a lot of groups doing that I wanted to kind of just spend a couple of seconds talking about. So I'll just quickly wait until everyone comes to class and then I can like kind of talk about these a little bit. I think it was in this collaboratory. Let me just double check. Yes, okay. So in yesterday's collaboratory, you were meant to write a proposal. You will get the comments and feedback on it from me today, just to make sure that you're all more or less on the right track and you all have really good projects that you're working on, and just to set you up for success. But so one thing that I wanted to talk about This was in class five's collaboratory, so the one that you had to do on Friday, so a while ago. So one thing that I wanted to show you here is there's been this thing with every single group where when you discuss these four parts, so the problem, specificity, scalability, ethical implication, these four. So one thing that I want everyone to kind of focus on in these parts, when we look at the specificity part, one way I want you all to think about this is thinking about building a small version of your solution. So for example, here in the specificity part in the example, it says this project will focus on creating something in this population in this city. So in the specificity part, it mentions exactly what the solution is going to be, who it's going to target, and in what city. So it looks at a very, very specific group of people in a very specific place. So that's one thing I want you all to focus on. So tell me exactly what the solution is in this part. So what are you trying to do, and who is it going to be applied to? And then scalability, this is just a very short sentence that says, okay, or like two or three sentences that says, if the small version of it succeeds in the version above, we will make it bigger by doing these couple of things. The last thing that I want you all to focus on, and this is something that only a couple of groups noticed, so it's okay. So the ethical implications is the ethical implications of your solution, not the problem. So for example, if you are planning on creating a solution that serves people who have medical insecurity, or like people in low income areas that don't have access to hospitals, one thing that you would want to do is making sure that you treat people fairly. You don't treat them as if, oh, you can't afford healthcare and you make them feel bad about it. So how do you solve the problem? And the solution itself is ethical. So you're not thinking about the ethics of the problem, you're thinking about the ethics of the solution. So are those parts clear? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. I'm seeing some nods. This is really good. So that's the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we all understand, because I think a lot of groups have been like kind of in that place. So now I will stop talking for a little bit after I introduce today's session. So speaking of ethical implications, we're going to be talking all about ethics today. So today is going to be all about ethical considerations and argumentation. So, how can we think about ethics in a much better way? And how can we think about the ethics of our solution by basically looking at who it's helping and how it's helping them, and making sure that we are helping people and not accidentally hurting them in some ways. In the pre-class reading, you looked at a specific case study or a specific example of the Tom's program. So so we're gonna watch a quick video about the Tom's program, and then I'm gonna ask you all a question about how does this video make you feel? So I want you all to pay very close attention to the video, and I want you to tell me how does this video make you feel? So let me just double check that I am sharing my audio. Yes, I am. Okay. So let's take the next couple of minutes to watch the video.
I'd like to say thank you for giving us this pair of shoes, and we really appreciate that.
Gracias por los zapatos. Gracias.
Merci pour souliers.
Thank you so much for all your support. None of this would be possible without you.
Okay, so I will give everyone just a couple of seconds, so 10 to 20 seconds to think about this. So I'm going to ask some of you basically, how did that video make you feel? So just take some time to think about it, and I will ask people. And you can also type your answer in the chat if you feel more comfortable that way. Okay, I will now ask people. So how about Ajun? Can you tell me, how did the video make you feel?
Video makes me warm-hearted.
Exactly. It makes your heart warm. I love that you use that metaphor. Like it makes you feel like really good. It makes you look at this and go like, "Oh, this is like such a good thing that I'm seeing this." Yeah, thank you so much. And how about Gyuhak? How does the video make you feel?
This video makes me feel good and think if we buy one, we are good people.
Okay, thank you so much for that extra part. If I buy this shoe, I will feel good. So it's not just making you feel good about the video, it's making you feel good about buying the shoes. So we're going an extra step there. So thank you so much for that. You answered my next question. So I have another question to think a little bit deeper about this. So why? Yeah. So it's in the chat. So why does this video make you feel good? So what was it about the video that makes us feel good about buying the shoes, that makes us feel good about watching the video? I will ask, let's see, how about Inju? Like, what part of the video makes you feel good specifically?
I think this video shows the acts of donate.
Wait, your audio cut out for a second. Can you repeat your answer, please?
I think this video shows the acts of donating.
Okay, it shows the acts of donating, right? So why does it make you feel good? Because it actually shows you something being donated. It shows you the facts. It shows you like the actual action. Good, thank you. That's a really good way of saying it. So it's because it's donating is something that we all feel is good. It's a social thing that we all keep seeing, like, yes, we should donate, we should donate, we should donate. And so when we see it happen, we feel good automatically. The word for this is we are primed by society. We are told by society that donating is good. When we see it happen, we feel good also. How about Hayon? What part of the video specifically makes you feel good?
I think the way we can donate is much easier because it is just buying shoes. When we want to donate, there is really so many steps to do that.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So it takes all the complexity and all the difficult parts about donating and makes them a lot simpler and a lot easier. Thank you so much for that. Because especially when it comes to, so if you wanted to go and donate money today, for example, you'd have to like look at 20,000 different organizations. You have to look at like all the different places on the planet that are like not doing so well, and it becomes a lot more difficult. This video just shows you, oh, do something that you're already doing and you will help someone. So it simplifies the process. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be going a lot more in detail and we'll be watching the video again in one of the next slides. But one of the things I want us all to kind of focus on and think about is in the pre-session reading, you also looked at this specific case as a case study, and the discussion in the reading was about how this did not work and how this project actually failed. So we'll be thinking about the difference between a commercial that is being engineered and designed to make us feel good versus the actual reality of the project and how we can basically understand communication and understand how something is affecting us. So this is the part about ethics and about argumentation. So thank you so much, everyone, for making the introduction this good. And so just to kind of talk about the main purpose of the lesson today, we'll be focusing on ethical decision making. How can we make decisions that actually help people and not harm them in the long run? We're going to be focusing on communication skills. So how do we communicate in the same way that the video did, for example? How can we engage people's emotions? How can we engage people using facts? How can we engage people using different parts of arguments, which we will talk about in a little bit, but it was also in one of the readings, so we'll get there, I promise. And lastly, when we are thinking about all these things, how do we use these skills to problem solve better? So this session is not just about solving a problem. This session is about solving a problem well and communicating it well. So the main point of today's class is to think about the solution and how we can solve things by looking at the actual people that it's solving, by looking at the ethics of the solution, and lastly, by basically being able to write arguments and write letters and write commercials and write things that will actually affect people in a good way. So, thank you so much for that, everyone. And we are ready to move on to the next part of today's session, which is going to be the glossary. So, I'm going to open up the glossary here, and let me just send over the link to everyone in the chat so that you can all easily open it up. So, for the next 3 minutes, I want us all to go down to the very bottom of the document, and I want you all to add in the words that were unfamiliar from the pre-class work into the document, and then in 3 minutes, we will go over the terms and kind of discuss. Also, I really like this example here. If I saw these in a coupon in Starbucks, exactly. BOGO or BOGO is how people pronounce it, is a really, really popular deal that you can see basically everywhere, really. Okay, and so we can go ahead and look over some of the definitions here that everyone has added. So we have, dissent and accusation, turnover rate. These are all terms from the very first reading that talks about basically what's the benefit of arguments in a team. Arguments are really good. In general, when you argue a lot in a team, if you do it respectfully and you do it well enough, it can actually help you all build much more perspective. So that was the main point of it. Dissent is basically when you have difference in opinion. Accusation, usually you see this word used in a legal context. So when it comes to courts and the law, you accuse someone of a crime. You say, oh, this person stole vegetables from this grocery store. So you're accusing someone of something. Turnover rate is basically when um, how fast people quit a company. So, for example, if a company has a high turnover rate, it means that employees are not satisfied. If there's a low turnover rate, it means people want to stay in the company. We have ooh, yes, and someone stole exactly what I was going to be talking about next, pathos. I'm also going to add these words in, so pathos, ethos, and logos. One thing that I want you all to think about this, um, I'm actually just going to highlight these here and say mini homework. So we'll be talking about the definitions of these three terms now. So just as your mini homework, after the session, just write in the definitions in the glossary. So we'll talk about them now, but thank you again so much, everyone, for adding in some of the terms that you misunderstood in the glossary. I'm seeing less and less terms, which for me says that, hey, you're all now learning a lot more English, which is one of the main goals that we all had at the beginning. So thank you so much, everyone. And now I will go back to the presentation, which is ethos, pathos, and logos, the three appeals. So in the readings, we watched a 2-minute video about the difference between these three terms. Now, these three terms are really, really old. They date back to Aristotle from like 2000 years ago. So they are still very relevant in terms of how we understand arguments and how we think about arguments. And so I'm going to call on people to help me read the parts on the slide, and then we will have an activity. So I want everyone now to pay attention to these definitions, and then we will move forward and think about how we can apply it to the video. So, um, actually, before then, we'll think of examples of each. So we'll get there. But for the first one, Sunho, can you help me by reading the part appeal to ethos in the first part?
Yes, yes. Appear to ethos credibility. Focus on the speaker's or writer's credibility and authority. Ethos build trust by demonstrating expertise, ethical character, and reliability.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, so can you give me an example of this? I will give everyone 30 seconds to 45 seconds to think of an example of an appeal to ethos, an appeal to credibility. This is something that's used in a very, very common way in almost every single advertisement I've ever seen. So whenever you guys think of an example, just raise your hands. Yes, Hayon, go ahead.
I think credibility can be their job and where they graduated. And lastly, their outfit, I think.
Yes, yes, really, really good. So basically, um, if you wanted to, for example, apply for a job, right? An appeal to credibility would be like, okay, you need to show them what university you went to, what degree you got, and you need to dress up properly so that when you go, you're like, oh yes, I'm wearing an expensive suit that shows that I am like, dedicated to something. So yes, exactly. So basically, it's about doing things that makes people think that you're qualified for something. So thank you so much for that. Another really good example is, do you know how in like toothpaste commercials or in like mouthwash commercials, there's always this one thing that people say like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this mouthwash or recommend this toothpaste. That's an appeal to credibility. That's an appeal to ethos. So whenever someone says dentists recommend this or doctors say this or some expert says that you should do this, that's an appeal to ethos. So, for example, if you are writing in, an essay, you say something like, "Oh, all of these researchers are saying this." That's an appeal to ethos. You're saying that these people who know more than I do say that this is the case, so I should trust them. Okay, thank you so much for that, everyone. And Minsong, can you help me by reading the part appeal to pathos? So just read the part off the slides, please.
Appeal to pathos emotion appeals to the audience's emotions, aiming to evoke feelings like sympathy, anger, or excitement to persuade them.
Okay, and thank you so much for that. So I will give everyone now again 30 to 45 seconds to think of an example of this. And when you come up with an example, just raise your hand.
If person speak with very angry, we usually follow the talk he speak.
So you're telling me I should teach in a much more angry voice. Okay, I will try, I will try that. No, that's really good. Exactly. So when someone is, speaking in an angry way, that kind of makes you feel something. And sometimes if someone's angry, you're just like silent. Okay, fine, I will do this. Like I get what you mean. Yes. So that's a really good example. So if you do something in a way that makes people feel something, so one good example is how so I'm just mentioning this example like mostly because this is what I'm researching and like one of the things that's really funny about it. In general, like there are games that make you kind of like, really like the characters that you're like playing with. And so you want to spend more money on the game because of that. So by making you feel good things towards the characters of the game, you would buy it. Or like, for example, you would buy t-shirts with the characters on it. So by making you feel good, they make you basically like convinced that something is a good idea. So appealing to anger, appealing to, joy, appealing to love, and like Ajung said at the very beginning of this session, this is a spoiler, the video made her feel heartwarmed, like a warm heart, like heartwarming. So by making people feel good, you're convincing them to buy shoes. That's one way. And lastly, we have appeal to logos. So, Eugen, can you help me by reading the part off the slide? So, appeal to logos.
Filter logo logic relies on responsive and evidence such as fact, data, or logical argument to convince the audience of the validity of a claim.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And now let's wait 30 seconds until someone can find an example of this. So, if anyone can think of an example of an appeal to logos, just raise your hand and we'll go over it. Okay, I will go ahead and ask someone then. Ji-Hwan, can you think of an example of an appeal to logos?
No, I think in official situations such as presentations, we believe more in data citing specialized inst- institutions such as the National Statistical Office.
Exactly. So when you're doing a presentation, or like when you're like you said, like in a formal or an official setting, you need citations, you need data, you need statistics, you need to convince people that yes, this is, for example, a problem. So one good use of an appeal to logos is when you're doing your final project presentations and you have to convince me that something is a problem. For example, by giving me numbers of like, oh, 80% of people in this one area don't have access to healthcare, or like 20% of people, are failing exams because they don't have higher quality education. So giving me numbers, giving me statistics, giving me data, giving me logical arguments immediately makes me think like, oh, okay, this is a problem. This is something that we should be talking about. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. These are the three appeals. You have ethos, which is credibility, pathos, which is emotion, and logos, which is logic. These are things that you all see every single day of your lives, in every advertisement, in every poster, in every commercial, in everything. So being able to be aware of this and being able to be conscious that people are using this is really important. So we are going to have a hands-on activity with this. So what we're going to do is we are going to watch the video again, the one with the Tom's commercial. And I want you all to think about specific examples of an appeal to pathos, an appeal to logos, and an appeal to ethos. So write as many as you can find or as many as you can notice. So I'm going to play the video again, and I want you all to pay very close attention to these three things. So I will now be silent again, and I will start the video.
I'd like to say thank you for giving us this pair of shoes, and we really appreciate that.
Gracias por los zapatos. Gracias.
Merci pour souliers.
Thank you so much for all your support. None of this would be possible without you.
Okay, so now that we've seen the video again, let me share. So this is just so it can make it easier for everyone. So I'm just gonna share this in the form of a poll. So basically, the poll asks, based on the video, can you find an example of a rhetorical appeal? So pathos, ethos, logos in the commercial. Describe at least one and explain it. So I'll give you all about 3 minutes to complete this poll. And I will then call on some of you to give me some of your examples. So just about 2 more minutes for the poll, just to make sure everyone has time to answer this. Okay, so around 30 more seconds. So just make sure that you get your answers in. Okay, so just waiting on around 5 more people to send in their answers. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll now and make sure that you share your answers. So now you should be able to see your answers as you are here. Um so one so Dajong, can you share your answer with the class?
I think there are a few to pathos because the content is mostly about people expressing gratitude for the shoe donations rather than the credibility or logic of the claim that shoe products are sufficient or that shoe donations really can help to them.
Exactly. So there was a very heavy emphasis on pathos, so making people feel good. So you see a lot of like, the kids feeling happy, you see them, dancing and trying to get as much of an emotional response as possible. Um, so how about Sunho? Can you tell me what you found in the video?
Yes, yes. I found pathos because if we know the terms donate to the other countries, we are warm-hearted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So basically we see that like, pathos, when we see the donation, we kind of like feel warm-hearted. So it's specifically about we now know what's happening. So it's giving us also this part of knowing, which is a part of logos too. So thank you. And Ajung, can you share your answer? Because you shared quite a few.
I found ethos and pathos because there are people who get shows in the video. They said donating shows support them, and if we and we can understand if we buy a pair of shoes, we can donate a pair of shoes for people in need.
Exactly. And you also mentioned logos in your
Oh,
answer in the end.
uh, okay. I also find logos because there are exactly e- ex- precise number. If we buy a pair of shoes, then we can donate a pair of shoes for people in need.
Exactly, and thank you so much for that. So that is actually a really good example of logos because you are like you're given an exact number here. So if you buy one, they get one. So BOGO, the same that we defined it in the definitions. So if you buy one, they get one, and basically that idea of like it kind of feels fair, right? And that way of like defining one and one is one way of understanding that like there is equality. You get something, they also get the same thing. That's one way. Like the reason why buy one get one donations always feel fair is because it feels like there's equality there, and that's one of the things about them. So thank you for mentioning that. I think that there's also so many examples in this video, mostly because there's the music, right? The music is really emotional. It's very motivational. It's very good. Like you listen to the music and you're like, oh, I'm very happy because of the music. There is, really good quality colors. There's also, kids like dancing and smiling and saying thank you and being happy. And then for ethos, you also like saw a message from which it wasn't clear, so it's completely fine if like I didn't catch it at first. You have the CEO, like the owner of the company, saying thank you in the message. So I think it was near the end here. Yeah. So this is the owner of the company. So he just got into the commercial and said thank you. So that's ethos. So if the owner of the company is saying thank you, then we're doing something good. So now that we all know more or less how these work, we can go into breakouts to basically think about the exact opposite. So up until now, we've been thinking about how well this commercial is structured. We've been thinking about how this company communicates and how it talks to us and how it thinks like thanks us. And now let's think about the reality of the situation. So not the commercial, not what they are telling us, but looking at the actual reality of the situation. So something that failed. So we know from the readings that the solution didn't exactly work, that the solution actually failed when it was applied in practice. So let's go ahead and basically what I want everyone to do for the breakouts is try to find a problem where the solution was attempted but failed. So this is something that you can bring from your own examples, like something from your own life. It could be something from your like breakouts. It could be something you saw in the news. It's up to you. You can bring whatever example you want to bring. Give me a solution that failed and tell me why it failed. So let me just show you what the breakouts are going to look like. This is group one's breakout. So you start with identifying the problem. So just describe what the problem was. Then analyze the attempted solution. What did they try to do to solve it? And then ask, why did it fail? And how can we do better? So what I want everyone to do is think of a solution that failed and make it better. So I'm going to quickly paste in the links here. Okay. And there. So these are the links to the documents. I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakouts now. Before I open them, do you have any questions at all for me? Okay, that's great. I'll open up the rooms now, and you should find your names at the top of every breakout. Eugen, can you access the breakouts? Okay. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're going to wait for around 6 to 7 minutes for everyone to start reading through, finding their example, and putting in their work. And then in after 7 minutes, I will start sharing the screen again and looking specifically at the breakout documents. So we can see their progress, we can see how much they're getting done. And then after I share those, I'm going to go into the breakouts and provide any support or feedback that I can. So I will start streaming again in 7 minutes, and I will share the breakouts then. Okay, and now we will open up the documents and take a look at how the groups are doing so far. So I will quickly share my screen here. So we can see the group one has identified an issue so far, so the Japanese asset price bubble. Um, I have no idea what that refers to. I'm really excited to see what context they give in. So I see that they're writing down the context here so far. Looking at group two, they're writing down their statement right now. So they're looking at countries that don't have access to clean water. And this is, I think, one of the examples that was in their pre-class readings in a few sessions. So I think they're probably going to be using the solution that didn't work from there. Group three is still, I think, having difficulty finding an example. So I will be going in and checking and asking if they need any help. And group four is looking at the childbirth grant and how it didn't solve the problem of a low birth rate. And looking at McDonald's marketing. Group five, same as group three, are still having a difficulty finding an issue. Oh wait, no, they have it here. So traffic congestion in Gangnam. So I will go ahead and jump into the breakouts for group three first, and then go to the other groups and provide some feedback on their work. Okay, so I went into the breakouts that were still having difficulties and managed to sort out the issues that they had, and everything should be clear now. The breakouts will end in about 6 minutes, and I will go back to sharing my screen to show the progress of the breakouts. So we can see group one looking at specifically an economic example. So going about talking about the Japanese asset price bubble and talking about the economic boom in Japan and how basically there have been some issues with the inflation rates um, and interest rates. We could see that they're writing in Korean and then going back and translating it because that helps them work a lot more. We can look at group two. Group two is looking at access to clean water using specifically the Life Straws solution, which was not necessarily working very well because people couldn't afford the solution and so had a lot of difficulty in being able to um, find like access and maintain the solution. Group three, they just found their solution of looking at garbage collection. And again, they are writing in Korean before to answer the questions and then taking it into a translating app and then bringing it back into the document. Group four is working on mentioned three explicit examples, and the one that they chose to discuss is the third one. Um, so thinking about how you can um, achieve a horizontal culture in work and make sure there's not so much of hierarchy, and how that might not necessarily work in a lot of contexts. Group 5 is looking at traffic and congestion in Seoul's Gangnam, looking specifically at the solution that was attempted, which is the circular road, and why that did not necessarily work. So again, the breakouts will end in about 4 minutes, and I will start sharing the class again when that happens. Okay, and now I have ended the breakout, so the groups should be coming back into the main room now, and I will ask a few groups to share. Hello. Okay, so everyone should be coming back into the main room in about 30 seconds, and we can go back to discussing. So we'll get started again in around 5 seconds. That's when all the groups will be back. Okay, and now let's go and look at the solutions that everyone has worked on. And so, one of the things I want us to focus on now for this specific part is this. So, I'm going to ask 2 or 3 groups, depending on time, to present their work and share their work with the class. And basically, I want you all to focus on explaining exactly what was the problem, what was the solution, and tell me why did it not work? So why did the solution fail? So, for the groups, I want to ask specifically, starting with group 1. So let me just share your document here on the screen. And group 1, can you tell me what was your problem, what was the solution, and why did it fail?
Yes, yes. Oh, we choose the problem with that erosion of Japanese asset price bubble. Mm, Thank you. Uh, Context is Japanese people consumption rapidly increased due to the economic boom, and Japanese Japanese government tried to raise the interest rate to settle down the overheated economy. But the Japanese government has implemented tight monetary policies, including raising interest rates and regulating the total amount of loans to calm down the bubble economy down. But as a result, the economy of Japan has decreased very large for 30 years. It is deflation, which is very hard to handle. Uh, we we talk about why this solution was unsuccessful. We think in 1990 January, the government took action too abruptly. When the central bank raised interest rate rapidly, priority prices plummeted and debt problems for business and households explode. So uh we made a better uh, alternatives. The government should have raised the interest rate gradually, not abruptly. Since 1991, deflation occurred rapidly, but the government cutting the interest rate was so late. They should have to cut interest rate at an earlier stage.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So I'm personally not an expert in economics, although I do know a little bit about bubbles. And yeah, this was a really good example of basically just a lot of issues that were happening in the Japanese economy, like in the 90s. And it's one of the big examples that people study in economy all the time or economics all the time. And yeah, so thank you so much for your presentation, Group 1. I think that you kind of really looked at the problem, like the way that the government tried to solve the issue and how it didn't necessarily work, mostly because the policies were kind of definitely there was an issue with like the dates and when they implemented the policies and how they could have changed that. There are, however, this is a very, very, very big issue, and that was only one of the solutions. But I feel like if anyone's interested in this, there's a lot to talk about this issue. I can talk about this for hours. But so now I'm gonna go on to talk about, so I think it was group two. Yes, so group two talked about something that was very similar to one of the readings that we had. So group two, does anyone want to share your work?
The problem we choose is about the country that doesn't have access to clean water. The solution that eventually failed was to use live straws. The idea was to use this to purify water in countries where clean water is not available due to lack of sewage facilities, thereby solving the problem. There are many places without water purification facilities, so many people are suffering from disease from water. The price of life straw is too expensive for people who want to get it. It's $20, but to earn this money, people in need have to work months. Do not have enough life. Relies heavily on the distribution of life through to NGO. Some countries have no water to drink, although there is some water, most of them are hard to drink. They are mixed with chemical substances to solve this problem. Life through turns dirty water into drinkable water by sorting harmful substances. NGO have secured as much life straw as possible and have distributed it to people in need. Some people who get life straw did not suffer from the river water anymore. However, people who didn't get it even though they needed it are suffering from various diseases from the water. So first of all, the main reason for the problem was the high cost of the life straw. It was hard for people in poor countries to fully afford the straw. So to lower the price, I would use cheaper material.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Gyuhak, and thank you so much for that work group too. So LifeStraw is it's a device that basically filters out water that you can buy if you're traveling to places where you don't have access to clear water. A lot of people buy those devices when they go on hikes or when they go out in nature. So there are lots of different kinds of solution. Like there's a lots of different uses for it. But over the past 10 years, people have been using it a lot, specifically in countries that don't have access to clean water. So the most important thing is that this is very much related to the examples that we talked about like 2 days ago, where basically this is not a good example of human-centered design because the same thing with the mosquito nets is that they didn't give it to everyone. And they basically it costs too much money to be able to give it to everyone, and so this causes a limit. There's also one of the words that was introduced in the pre-class readings, something called an outsider solution. So the same thing with the Tom's shoes is when you have a lot of life straws coming in from outside the country that needs help, and not people in the country developing these solutions themselves, it it basically causes this kind of way that if they don't have that connection anymore, they lose access to clean water. So the main thing that I want everyone to think about, especially for this solution, is basically how can you use this kind of thing as a temporary solution so you can build um, better solutions that are more like by the people in the country. So if we can remember the example from the malnutrition in Vietnam, That could be a similar way of doing it. Teach the people how to cook rather than send them food. And that's one of the reasons why I highlighted this group's work. It's really, really important. So thank you so much for that, group two. And lastly, I wanted to look at the work of group five. So group five, can you share your answer and your work?
We chose a problem about Gangnam traffic congestion. In Seoul's Gangnam district, major commercial and business areas are concentrated, leading to frequent traffic congestion. To address this, the construction of new roads such as the Gangnam Circular Road was attempted, but this had problems. Despite efforts to prevent traffic congestion in Gangnam, Seoul, South Korea, the problem has not been resolved. The initial plan was to solve traffic congestion in areas with dense commercial and business districts by building new roads. First, after building the new road, the Gangnam Ring Road, the signal system and intersection was improved, and the habitual traffic congestion improvement project plan was implemented to crack down on illegal parking and stopping in the surrounding area. According to YTN News in Korea, since the population of Gangnam-gu, Seoul, is still dense and has a large floating population, but traffic problems and traffic congestion exist in Gangnam-gu even on a regular basis. In summary, to solve the problem of traffic congestion, the government implements a road plan like Gangnam Circular Road. It can't solve the fundamental problem of congestion. As the circulation path was built, many vehicles were concentrated on the circulation path, but the surrounding roads were not ready to accommodate the cars on the circuit. In conclusion, the solution could not work properly because the road plan was disestablished. So, I think we can prevent this outcome by restraining and train vehicles. Also, we should expand the area and number of public transport. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, group five. I think you went into a lot of detail on the problem and how to think about it and how to actually come up with better solutions for the problem. So one of the things I want to ask now, so I think like you've have you all visited Gangnam before? So just give me a thumbs up if you've been to Gangnam before. Okay. So a lot of you have, which is like good. So we can kind of think about this solution because we've all seen it. We've all experienced it. I've gotten stuck in traffic in Gangnam before too. So my question is, so this group suggests expanding the area and expanding public transport. So making the public transportation systems better. So I want us all to think about this now and tell me. Let me just write the question in the chat here. Do you think that solution will work? So my question is, and I'll give you all a minute to think about this. Do you think that solution will work? Why or why not? So, do you think Group 5's solution of increasing public transportation will work? I will give you all about a minute to think about this, but if you already have an answer, raise your hand and we will talk about it. Okay, so now that we've all had some time to think about the solution, I will call on a few people and ask, do you think the solution will work? Do you think it won't work? And why? So, Sungmin, Do you think the solution will work? Do you think more public transportation, so more buses, more trains, will improve congestion in Gangnam?
I think it will work because the public transportation can accommodate many people at once.
Okay, so we have an agreement, a yes. So yes, it will accommodate a lot more people. So less people would have to take their cars to go through Gangnam. They could just take the bus. And the more people use public transportation, the more, like the less congestion there is because there's less cars. Yes, thank you so much for that, Songmin. Do you have any other ideas? So how about Jiyeon? Do you think the solution will work or not? And why?
Think more solutions will need because I went to Gangnam. Uh, the traffic. mm, I need more time.
It's okay. Take your time, and I'll ask you again in a couple of minutes. So we'll get someone else, and then, yeah, just to give you time to think about it. But I like that you started with, like, with your experience. Like, I've gone to Gangnam. So I'll ask someone else, and then we'll go back to Jiyeon. So how about, let's see. So how about, Hajun? Do you think the solution will work? Yes or no?
I think it will not work well because in Gangnam there are already many transportation, many buses. So and there are so many cars, people who drive. So it won't um, be a good solution.
Okay, so we now have a different opinion that this will not work because there's already a lot of buses and a lot of trains that go through Gangnam. So if those are not making congestion better, what's happening? Why is that an issue? Jion, are you ready to share now?
Um, when I went to Gangnam, the roads were heavily congested because of the cars of parents waiting for their children in the academy district. So I think we should more solutions about that.
So we have a solution that says this will not work, but here's another solution that could work. So focusing on the academy district, focusing on the school district, focusing on specific areas. Okay, we are now understanding a lot more about how the problem-solving process works. So thank you so much for that, everyone. And I think that this is going to be a fun thing to talk about. I love this example. But thank you so much for that group five. Your example was really good and it helped us get a lot of discussion because you mentioned an example that we, like all of you, deal with and something that you all see and something that you're all kind of like thinking about. So thank you for the really good example, group five. And now, after this, we are going to go into another breakout. So let's look at the breakout that's coming up next. So, you're all going back into the same rooms and the same groups. And now, instead of thinking about how to solve the problem, you're going to think about the people affected by this problem. So, basically, I want you all to imagine that you are someone that is struggling because of this problem and write a letter that explains your feelings. So basically, write a letter to the project organizer that made the solution saying your solution failed, why this matters, and what recommendations do you have for the person organizing the project. So, for example, group one would probably write it to whoever makes financial like decisions about the economy in Japan. Group two would write it to the NGOs that deal with LifeStraw. And group five would write it to the people who implemented the Gangnam Circular Roads and basically talking about like, hey, you guys tried to fix it. It did not work. Please do better and tell them like why it did not work. So one thing that I want us all to think about, and I want you all to focus about, is I want you all to use specifically pathos, ethos, and logos. So I want you to all to use data and statistics to create a logical argument. I want you to think about experts and what they say about the solution and why it didn't work. So that's ethos. And I want you to use emotion. I want you to use emotion in a way that makes the person who made the failing solution feel bad that they that they didn't succeed. So, does this part make sense on what we're supposed to do in the second breakout? So, you're all gonna write a letter to the people who tried the solution and failed. So, I'm gonna send the link to the second group, the second breakout. And I will open up the rooms now, and this will be a 15-minute breakout, so it's not too long. And when we come back, I'll have two groups share their letter. So just be ready for that, and I'll open up the rooms now. Hello. Okay, so I assume Hajan is just getting his charger. Hajan, can you hear me? I think he needs his headphones, so that's why. Hajan, can you join the breakouts, or can you not hear me yet? Okay, I will just quickly contact the TA. Okay, so the issue should be resolved pretty quickly. Yes. Okay, and so this is why we have TAs in the rooms. Yeah, this is really great. So the issue was resolved really quickly. So again, similar to the last breakout, we are going to wait around 6 or 7 minutes, just so the groups can have the time to work on the breakouts, and then I will start sharing their work again. So, um, yes, around 6, 7 more minutes, and then I will share the breakout rooms and the documents. Okay, and so now we can look over at the breakouts and see their progress. So let me quickly share my screen. And so group one, who was working on the Japanese asset bubble, they have targeted exactly who they're going to be sending their message to. And now again, they're using Korean as kind of an intermediate language to be able to write down exactly what they're feeling and then translate it later. And so they're also like using logos here. So yeah, they took the Korean, translated it and brought it back. And now they're writing down exactly like a lot of statistics that can kind of really convince the person that they're writing a letter to. Group two, who is responsible for the life straw solution, are now starting to write exactly, first of all, who their character is. So I hope to drink water, but the cost issue I couldn't get one. And now they're using pathos. Have you ever drank water with sand and viruses in it? So group two is, is doing a great job on that part. Looking at group three's work, they're looking at specifically at waste and trash collection. And again, they're using Korean as kind of a way to write down their thoughts as a group, and then translating it later in the process. Group four, who is focusing on working as a new employee and focusing specifically on exactly what parts that they're going to be looking at in the letter before they write it down. Group five, who is the one that was looking at Gangnam's public transportation example, is now working on bringing the specific parts before they write the letter down. So all the groups are making pretty good progress in their work. The breakouts will end in around 3 minutes, and that's when I will start sharing the screen again so we can look at all their work. Okay, so we'll wait until all the groups come back, which is in around 30 seconds, and we can go ahead and start sharing the breakouts. You guys are doing such a great job with these breakouts. I'm reading over the letters and I'm so happy. They're so good. Okay, so everyone should be back in around 5 seconds. And everyone should be coming back into the main rooms now, so we can go ahead and start sharing. So for the sake of time, I think we can only look at one specific group. So I'm gonna pick on group 2. So can anyone in group 2, so Gyuhak is the one that presented last, so how about Jungsu? Can you read over the letter that you guys wrote and explain why you chose to write the letter that way? Oh, so I think Jungsu's having some tech issues because I see two. Okay, yeah, there, he's back.
Oh. Do I need to read the letter?
Yes, please.
Have you ever drank water with sand and viruses in it? We always drink water with all sorts of litter. We didn't know whether it was safe or not, since we had no other choice but the dirty water. We had been ill after we drank the water. It was a string of hard days. However, you made me dream. After the life straw was invented, many people of my tribe could drink water with the straw. I thought it was the end of hard days. Though you tried to distribute a life straw for free, not everyone could get a life straw, so we have to buy it for clean water. The average monthly wage is equal to the cost of the life straw. Surely we can solve our problem because of the high cost for us to buy this. Remember the case of Q-drum. Q-drums can be useful in our lives. Also, it is easy for us to buy it. Thus, we can bring a lot of liquid easily from a distance. If you make life draw more cheaper, the quality of our life will enhance.
Okay.
So,
Thank you so much for that, Jungsu. I actually want to see what other groups think, how you wrote your letter, but I love it. This has a lot of really good examples. But yeah, thank you so much for that. I'm also going to just highlight a couple of sentences here. So how about this one too? So, um, I want us all to think about what are the main appeals used here. So the question is in the chat. So what are the main appeals used in Group Two's letter? So I will give everyone about 30 seconds to think of this question before I ask someone to tell me what they think. I think I gave everyone a hint with the two sentences I highlighted. Okay, so I will go ahead and ask someone. So, Dajong, can you tell me what do you think the main appeal Group 2 used was? So was it pathos, logos, or ethos?
I think it used a filter ethos.
Okay, and why? Why do you think that? Yeah.
Because I read the letters and I feel sadness.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. So it was primarily based on pathos. I read this and I was so sad. I'm like, okay, this is a very like emotionally powerful letter of like when you read it, you feel really, really sad. So yes, they focus specifically on pathos. So the first paragraph was like, have you ever drank water with sand and viruses in it? So immediately starting with like something that makes you feel bad. And then it was a string of hard days. However, you made me dream. So it feels so sad. So thank you so much, Group 2, for a very, very strong application of pathos here. It was very clear. It was very obvious. There was also a lot of references to other solutions. So that is also an appeal to logos. So basically thinking about other cases and other examples that were used. And yeah, no, I think this was a really, really good example of a letter. Thank you so much for that, Group 2. So one of the recommendations I can make is that so this activity, so this is something called role playing. So let me quickly just write that in the chat so that we can all remember it. So this is called role playing. So role playing means to play as a role, so to pretend that you're someone else. And it is really important for something like human-centered design. So when you're trying to solve a problem, pretend that you are the person affected by this problem. Then you'll be able to come up with a lot more accurate and a lot more, like a lot better solutions to be able to solve this situation. So thank you so much, everyone, for all your work. And now we're heading to the final summary of the session. So, how about Yerim? Can you tell me one thing that you learned in today's class? So, what was one thing that you learned about?
I learned what pathos, logos, and ethos is.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. That is also a really important thing to learn because now that we know what those are, we know how to use them. We know how they're being used to convince us to do something, and we can know how to use them to convince other people. That's also really important. Thank you for that. And how about Eugen? So Eugen Han, can you tell me what you learned in today's class?
I learned how to consider a problem that has been never solved um, with a new solution that our group discussed.
Okay, thank you so much. Like how to look at problems that haven't been solved effectively before, and how to come up with different solutions based on a solution that didn't exactly succeed. So thank you so much for that. I think that that's a very strong thing that if you manage to learn that, I'm very happy. So thank you so much. And so before we wrap up today's session, I just want to spend some time looking over the collaboratory for today's class. So today's collaboratory, I want everyone to look at the following documents. So the very first task of the collaboratory is to spend some time looking at the things that you learned today to refine the ethical aspects of the solution. Remember, we're looking at the ethics of the solution, not the problem, the thing that you're trying to do. Is it ethical? Is it not? So, based on what you learned today from role playing, how can you use that to be able to make sure that the solution you're trying to do is ethical and actually helps people in a good way? So, basically, this is split into two parts, ethical assessments. So, look at your project plan, look at your solution plan. Try to think about the ethics of it. Does it work? Does it not? Does it respect the rights and dignity of all people? Can it have any consequences that you might not be planning on? And then improve. The second part is to work on your presentation. So, since you are going to be presenting and recording the presentation for Thursday, make sure that you start working on it today. So create an outline and practice. Lastly, I want you all to write in a reflection. So basically think about what are the parts that were improved and what are some challenges that are still there. One important thing to go over is when you open up this document, this is a template for the presentation. So make a copy of this and feel free to fill in the documents here so that you have a structure. So for example, you start with this title slide, you have an overview. So what is your problem? Why do you care about this problem? How are you planning on solving it? And then talking about this problem in more detail, analyzing the problem, talking about the solution in more detail, and talking about the ethics. So these are the main parts of the solution. And then the last part is about feedback. So what did you learn through the feedback that you received throughout the whole boot camp? And lastly, a conclusion. So just summarize everything that you said and what you learned. So, does everything about the collaboratory make sense? And do you have any questions before we end the session today?
We should record a presentation.
Yes, tomorrow, not today. So the recording of the presentation is due tomorrow. Today you're just working on filling in the slides and writing in as much information as you can. So is that clear for everyone? Okay. If there are no more questions, thank you so much everyone for today's class. I had so much fun with all the details that you brought in, and I will see you all in office hours in a few hours.